Okay, leading off our driver media opportunities here this morning at Darlington is Greg Biffle. And Greg drives the number 16 3M Red Cross Ford for Roush Fenway. And Greg, certainly no stranger to success here at Darlington. He's won here twice. He's had 2 top 5s, 5 top 10s, and he sat on the pole twice. So, Greg, coming into Darlington, you had a good, strong run last week at Texas. Team's looking good. Coming into Darlington, a place I'm sure you'd like to get that first win of the season and get yourself in that chase mode.
Yeah, I'll tell you, last week was a huge uplift for us. We had really struggled as kind of a team and organization, even though Carl got a win. We've struggled a little bit this year on speed, and especially the intermediates, where it's been our strong suit, Las Vegas and California. And we were fast right off the truck and had good speed, qualified good, and ran good. So that gave us some confidence coming here this week that hopefully we're starting to get, the zero ride height, the new aero package down a little bit more and going to be more competitive. We just got done doing a 2-day tire test. Been a busy week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday at Michigan, and felt like our car had good speed there too. So we'll continue to try and build on it and hopefully have a good run here and maybe add to that list, maybe be in here tomorrow night talking about it.
Okay, thanks, Greg. We'll take questions now. We'll start, looks like Ed Hinton, you have one, and then Reed Spencer.
Hey, Greg, Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. 2-part question. One, the first 4 or 5 drivers to win races this year, in Victory Lane, it was, hey, in the chase, more than likely. Now you got 7 for 7, and if you were to win Saturday night, do you think you'd be as sure of yourself, say, as Harvick was at Phoenix?
I think so. I honestly do, just because I think that I don't know how it was last year out of the first 7 or 8 races, but I really feel like if you get a win, let's face it. So you're going to have to be somewhere decent in points as well. It's going to fall back on points after wins. So, yeah, if you're, 20-something in points, you might be an odd guy out, so to speak. But we feel like we're not great in the points. I think we're, in the low teens, but even if we're in the low teens and had a win, that puts us into the chase. So if we can maintain our point position, obviously get a little bit higher than we are. If we won, we'd move up in points. I think we'd feel pretty safe. But I wouldn't be surprised if it maybe goes over 16 by a number or two. But I think you're pretty staying safe if you have a win.
And part B, could you talk about the tire test at Michigan, especially considering that there's been several really fast tracks this year where tires have been the big issue going in, and Michigan with its 200-plus speeds. Can you just talk about, based on what you've seen so far, can you tell whether any issues like, or not necessarily issues, but the talk of like California and Texas is how do you see Michigan when we come up to those 200-mile-an-hour speeds there?
Well, I think a lot of us are fighting on these tire issues. A lot of it is team-orientated. The tire hasn't changed from last year. So what's changed then? Well, the ride height rules changed, and the car's got a lot more downforce on it. So that's what's changed the tire issue. And we're probably just going to have to continue to come up a little bit on left side tire pressure, because that's what, tires getting so much load on it when it's on low air, because the car is sucked to the ground so hard and it's got more downforce than it ever did. So that's probably most likely what's causing these tire issues is the, car's got more speed, more downforce. I would say that could potentially be a problem at any place that we're going that fast and put that much load on the tire on low air. That can be a deal anywhere. And maybe those construction sidewalls and that tire combination is a little bit different. The left side tire at Michigan is, I'm not going to say hard, but it's a fairly It's a little bit harder tire. So I think it may not have quite the grip level that those other tires did. So because of the surface of that racetrack. When you take an abrasive racetrack that wears tires out and it needs a little bit softer tire for grip, unfortunately, the tire pays the price when it's brand new because it's got so much grip. Kind of like here, when on the old racetrack, the thing had just light years of speed for like 2 laps, and then it would slow down 4 seconds. Well, those 2 laps, because the tire's so soft, it punishes the tire. And so when you add that to the extra downforce and the zero ride height, that's what's fatiguing the tire right out at the beginning of the run, and then it's showing up later in the run probably. But I don't think Michigan will see that. That repave, the tire's a little harder. But you could go to any racetrack and you lower the air low enough on the left, you're going to have a tire failure.
While we're at it, what about here? Is all this business from California and Texas, does that just not apply here? Or?
I think the same thing applies. You could go to any racetrack and lower the air low enough to have an issue. You just could do that. You lower the air, keep lowering the left side air down here for more grip, and the data shows it makes more grip the lower you go on air pressure. It's just how low do you want to go before you have a problem. And we have typically not gone that low. We started creeping down at Texas after the track got rubbered in, but we still didn't get down to where we really felt like we wanted to.
Let's go over here to Reed. Reed, raise your hand. We'll get you, and then we'll go to Mike back in the back.
Reed Spencer with NASCAR Wire Service. I've got 2 quick ones. About Michigan, if I read it correctly, you reported a straightaway speed of 220 approximately. If memory serves, that's about 7 miles an hour faster than you guys were running there last year. How did that affect the way you had to run the corner?
It really didn't, believe it or not. It makes it a little bit more like a qualifying lap more than anything. So the corner, really is about the same. And let's keep in mind it was 40-some degrees with a track temp of about 66. So really, really cold temperatures, high grip, lots of grip. And they were testing tires that had more grip. So, they put a tire on the car that we're not going to race that went that fast. So on the standard tire, I think that the mile per hour was down maybe 3 or 4 miles an hour from that. But, I'm not so worried about those into the straightaway speeds. We slow down a little bit in the corners. I think that's the thing. But when they get sustained that high, it makes it harder to pass and harder to race. But, Goodyear's trying to come up with a little bit better tire, a little more reliable, and I think they've done that. I'm thinking they're going with that dual zone tread possibly. So that's what they're leaning towards. We'll see what all the data when they get back and research it, what they come up with. But I think that's a better tire because it puts a little margin in the right front. They don't want to blow right front out at that track.
And second, if NASCAR follows through and cuts the power of the Cup cars, takes say 200 horsepower out of them, whether it's through tapered spacer plate or a smaller engine. Ostensibly, they will drive more like the nationwide cars do now. Is there any temptation on the part of you Cup guys to get in a few nationwide races and basically acclimate to that?
We haven't talked about doing nationwide races for that particular reason, but I've talked about doing a few nationwide races because I miss it so much, driving those cars. It's funny. You put a restrictor plate on them, and they go faster in the corner and slower on the straightaway. And that really doesn't accomplish anything if you look at it, because why do you want to speed the car up in the middle of the corner? That just makes it even harder to pass when you do that. I understand they want to take power out, and that's, maybe a little bit of power, maybe cubic inches or whatever they do is a good reset to start climbing back up. Because as you look over the years, it started out at 600 and something, now it's 900, right? But it's kind of unique or odd that you lower the power and they go faster in the corner, which is typically where you want to slow the car down. Really, you want to slow the car down in the corner is where you really want to slow the car down.
Let's go back to Mike. Raise your hand, Mike. And then we got right over here. Go ahead.
Mike Neff from FrontStretch.com. Greg, if memory serves right, they repaved this track 7 years ago. I assume it's starting to get some character back. How much priority or how much focus do you have to have on making your tires last now compared to 3 or 4 years ago when the pavement wasn't worn out yet?
I mean, it's starting to get back to that a little bit, and as Goodyear brings, you know, a softer tire as the track deteriorates grip, and they bring a softer tire. That's more when you're going to have to, take care of it. But we're not quite there yet. I mean, it's not too soft yet. You can still drive the car pretty hard, and the tire doesn't really hurt the tire. I think it'll be a few more years and maybe a step or two softer tires before we'll see that.
Got time for 3 more questions. Right over here, and we'll go to who had a question? Claire, Dustin. I got to get my man Pete in, so we'll finish with Pete. But if we can move quickly, though, go ahead.
Greg, Rich Culbreth with the Motor Racing Network. Weekend coming up. It's going to be an off weekend. You got big plans. Well, what have you got going on, and how do you see Richmond coming up here in a couple of weeks?
Well, I'm going to the beach for a few days after this race, a little R&R, and then Richmond. We've been running good on short tracks, so I'm looking forward to Richmond. I think that we ran really good there last year, and our short track program continues to improve, so I'm looking forward to that track.
Claire, Dustin, and then in with Pete. Go ahead, Claire.
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Greg, you're always good at describing what goes on inside the race car. Can you talk about the Darlington stripe and how close to the wall your peripheral vision and figuring out how to get there without getting snagged and what it feels like?
I don't know if I can tell you what it's like to drive around this track. It's pretty hard. This was I don't know how every other driver feels, but this is probably the toughest place we race at as far as concentration and what it takes to get around here. You drive down the corner, close to 200. It's about 190 some miles an hour, and that the car slides up and hopefully stops about 6 inches from the wall as you're pushing the power to it. So it just takes a lot. It's really hard to manage, and it's easy to step over that. It's easy to step over that edge and get a little stripe on the side of it. So hopefully it's a little stripe and not a big stripe. So, and hopefully I keep the right side clean this weekend. So
Dustin, and then end with my good friend Pete.
Dustin Long, MRN.com. Just curious, Greg, what's the most difficult day you've had at work in the sense of what's been the most challenging race inside the car, whether it was in Cup, Nationwide, or anything else earlier in your career, whether it was because of health or just a tough day or a tough challenge?
One that sticks out in my mind is the Coca-Cola 600 when the helmet blower quit working on pit road before the start of the race, and it was hot that day. I remember that being a really tough day. Frustration level was high. It was really hot, and it was a long time to breathe exhaust and burnt oil and rubber and everything else in there for that period of time. And then leading about half a straightaway lead when the caution came out, when the 48 lost his engine with like 3 to go, and then we ended up running out of gas. Had to pit and get gas. So that probably was one of the tougher days that I can remember.
Final question, Pete.
Pete Iacobelli with the Associated Press. Greg, I know back in February you said you were closing in on a contract extension. Are we any closer to that now? Any announcement anytime soon? I
think so. I think we're getting closer. I think there's a lot of moving parts to a contract, obviously, and a lot of new people at 3M. But I know that the folks are going up there, I think, next week and visit some more about. So I have a feeling it's getting closer. I know there's been a lot of activity, and the program works really well for them. We have the American Red Cross on the car this weekend, so it's a good program for 3M, and I think they're happy, and it looks like we're closing in on something announcement. So hopefully here soon we'll have something. Thanks.
Greg, thank you for coming in, and certainly good luck this weekend at Darlington.